Hi.
Hi. My timing was so perfect. I was like, I can't wait anymore. I gotta light this.
I know.
Right.
You know what? I just realized this is really bad.
You don't have it. You don't have your stuff.
I don't have any more weed.
What? How? How does that happen?
I don't know because I crushed it all into the grinder.
What's up next?
Puffing, trying. I have
trying,
enough.
But she's out of weed.
I'm like, I have enough, I think, for Abel. And then I'm gonna have to I got my terp pen here though. So
okay, good. I was like, you can't be completely out. Like that's like the stoner like when one of us says that we're out, we're not really out. We're just at a detrimental place where we don't have choices anymore, and like shit's getting real low. And
I mean, I do have some more like indica driven strains like upstairs.
Don't smoke that here.
But yeah, no. I mean, I could like dump my keef on top of it because we know that's all
from your shout out my smoke gear. Your my smoke gear grinder.
Yep, it needs to be emptied soon too.
We lost our Facebook audience today. We've lost like I don't know. Is it half? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see what happens. I think we get a lot of viewers on YouTube and Twitch. So
I think I agreed. I think that we are
and hopefully our Facebook viewers realize that Facebook is garbage today, and click those links in the post that made it onto Facebook today. Facebook is back up, but it would not let us go live. So they still working out some issues and problems. I feel like it was the 90s today. Like
I was like, someone text me the tweet or the Twitter, whatever you call it. I obviously don't do that. And and I was like, oh, everyone does not know what to do with themselves right now. Like not everyone's like staring Twitter, at their phones going like, why isn't this working?
Twitter is like, I mean, you can post pictures and stuff, but Twitter's a lot of just chit chat, you know, whereas, you know, Facebook is a lot of people sharing articles or
pictures, videos,
opinions, and then Instagram is the pictures, you know, so, and videos. And I've had it with TikTok, so I refuse to go over there. And so all day long, I was like, come back up, Facebook. I was really concerned about it coming back up for the show, but I
know it would have been a technical miracle for us if it had. Like we were like when you were like, it might be up. It might be up. Oh, hey, hold on.
We have a guest dog in the house. Shout out Jason Mitchell. I hope you watch this back. That's your dog. That's Bear. What's up, Bear? Bear barks at everything, and apparently somebody walked in the house. So there it is. We're professionals around here. Don't even worry about it. While she's getting him quiet, we are excited today. We have a show about sustainability today. And we have guests in the house for the first time in a long time. It's been a really long time. You're still muted, by the way. So just say,
yeah. I know. I was waiting to make sure that there wasn't any like, nope.
There he is. It's okay. Bear, bring it down a notch. But we've been waiting to talk about this for a minute, but we wanted to make sure that we lined up the appropriate guests. Of course, we did line up the appropriate guests, but of course, and apologies to each and every one of our guests that we lined up. We waited till the very last minute to tell them that we wanted them on the show. So, but, oh, she went away. She'll be back. Don't worry about it. But these ladies that we have on today are very well versed in our subject. I'm really excited to talk to them and get some ideas of how we can help change the way that we do business in cannabis as consumers. But one thing I want to point out before we even start this conversation is that I was actually reading something about recycling and our carbon footprint as individuals. And really, if we all did, and we were having this conversation actually with one of our guests the other day too, but really, if all of us did exactly what we were supposed to do, our absolute 100% effort, we cleaned up all of our recyclables, they all got recycled, nothing fell through the cracks, things like that, we still would not have the impact that the earth needs to change our situation, because a lot of this,
we would have had to start, like, I think 50 years, 30 years
even
ago
then,
at least.
even then, if consumers themselves had started back in, like the 80s, when I did a little school play about pollution, and we were trying to really tell our baby boomer parents that they needed to stop whatever the fuck they were doing and like start saving the planet. We did not have the impact, Gen Xers and millennials, that this generation is having. But that's because it's a dire need.
My dad's a mechanical engineer, and he was working on composting and recycling ideas and such back in the 80s, when I was growing up. I have to go back to his bio.
Like, this isn't a brand new idea, right? It's been generations.
But everyone is not it's not going to affect us. It doesn't affect us, not us,
not us.
The mentality, and look at us as the cannabis industry, or not us, but other people in the cannabis industry that are just like packaging. And it's like,
part of it's regulation. We're going to talk about that today. And part of it's our own shit. That's our own bullshit.
Yeah. And I think there's multifaceted in terms of the sustainability issue. Couldn't hear while he was barking of what you touched on in the intro, but
that's okay.
I know we're talking about environmental impacts and just in terms of our packaging, and then also you and I have talked about sustainability and growing. We're going to touch on that and water.
We're going to touch on like
and such. So
really, what are we doing?
It's a whole big. It is literally an ecosystem. Our little cannabis industry ecosystem, and how it feeds each other or feeds off of each other, and what we need to do to actually make sure that it's sustainable. So
I'm not telling, but I'm not telling y'all to stop trying. Keep trying. Keep doing
trying. Every little bit helps. What you can do.
Compost if you compost. Recycle if you recycle. Do all the things that you can do. But honestly, if we don't get these large companies and corporations on board, nothing's going to change.
Listen, I told you about this, that I did a little personal test on myself of where am I what's happening? What am I generating? And so I did start composting, and I had a compost bin, and then I had my notes, or like I had signs everywhere. So people were like, wouldn't throw shit into my garbage can. It says, do nothing with food or wetness. It goes into this. There's not a garbage bag in there. And then I had my recycle bins, and people didn't know what to do. I was just like, leave it on the counter. I will take care of it. And I took out the compost bags, maybe a couple times a week. That garbage, the actual garbage, and it was mostly packaging from processed foods or things that I was buying for the house, and even just down to where I would keep rubber bands, the clips on the bread bags, and kind of to see everything that I was kind of consuming. And with that, I was able to also, though, like I said, I used one garbage. I didn't even use garbage bags. I had a whole thing of garbage bags that I didn't use for this period of time. I was using my dog food bags, shoving all of the packaging material into, and filling it, like to the point where, and then I tape it shut, and then that would go into my, garbage. Significant difference. And then when I stopped doing it, now I see how many, I'm taking out 2 or 3 garbage bags a week. Because of that, the smell.
We produce a lot of trash.
Is why we throw our garbage out so quickly.
I went to, it's been years, but I went on a trip to Malaysia and India, and we went out to we went out to stay with a tribal community in their longhouse, and it's the Iban community. We stayed out there, and they live in the middle of nowhere. We had to take boats like these paddle boats to get to them, after hours on the road to get to the place, and then hours in the right. So it wasn't like they're on the edge of civilization. They are not. Okay. So much packaging, because what happens is they send one person from every generation to school to keep up with current affairs, to know what's going on in the world outside of their community, so that they can just understand what's happening and be prepared for anything coming in towards them. But what happens is then they bring canned foods back and packaged foods back and all this stuff. And now we have trash that we didn't have before. It's crazy the impact that that we had. Like, these foods came from our factory. They're our foods, you know.
Right. And then that is the question. And yes, when I see commercials or different little Facebook ads about, oh, this company developed a packaging that is biodegradable or this or that. And it's then the question of, why isn't it being done more? Why isn't it accepted more? Why is this being bought and then not being brought to fruition, or et cetera, et cetera? So I think it's time we should go ahead and bring in our ladies. We'll bring them all three in. I have a little bit of info. Amy has been with us on our Women in Cannabis show. I'm going to go ahead and bring you all in at the same time. And so Amy is with Under the Rose, and it's a female-owned cannabis topical company. Last time we talked to you, Amy, back in March, you guys had just gotten your MIP license. How is that going?
It's good. It's good. Thank you so much for asking and having me. It's so good to see you, ladies. It's going so good. We are now in our 8th dispensary. Super cool. We have kind of like a slow but very like powerful start. I feel like it's honestly been picking off. I think we finally like opened up full blown for sales in June, and then so right now we're sitting at 8 dispensaries, and we're about to release bath bombs, and those are in the process. So
very cool. Well, Queen and I will like to touch base with you about some endeavors and different ventures. So and then what else did I want to ask you about? Oh, I just wanted to mention that you have your BA and your bachelor's in sustainability studies. And so that's why we, and you've been in the cannabis industry for a few years now. So just wanted to throw out those credentials. I don't have much information on Kristin and Becky from Erase the Trace. So we're going to let you guys intro yourself, and then we'll start just kind of getting into it and start talking about all the things we can get into.
Well, I'm Becky. I'm founder of Erase the Trace, founder president. That's Kristin, my VP over there, other side.
Yeah, they switched you. I do it all the time.
I don't know. We started, I guess, Erase the Trace back in 2015 was the kind of concept of it all. Just seeing the trash everywhere, kind of a lot of the points that you said, and snowballed into this, and kind of seeing what we can do about minimizing in the cannabis industry as this takes off and builds as well.
For sure. I'm Kristin. I'm the vice president at Erase the Trace. So one of the things that we do in the community is we go around and clean up trash. We just go pick it up. We sort out the recyclables, and we get it where it needs to go, particularly in communities that might be not necessarily as looked after as other places, we'll say. And also sort of community outreach, teaching people about recycling. And then also we just broke into this summer music festival green teaming. So taking all of the waste, all the beer, all of the bottles, everything, sorting it out from the trash, getting the recyclables where it needs to go, and really minimizing the impact in the music industry as well. So we're hoping to have a similar impact in the cannabis industry, and here in Missouri it's just at the ground level. So hopefully we can help them build something better than what we're seeing other places.
Cannabis, music, it all goes hand in hand.
I mean, I just love it. Yeah, because those are some of the filthiest places at like such a waste too. There's so much waste and filth at a music festival. It's crazy. But of course, I love a good music festival too. So
And so that's actually been one of the cool things about this summer because there has been a couple local festivals. We've been kind of small green teaming through the years. And at the very end of the festival, when they drove around, we found 4 pieces of trash. Like there was a Frisbee and a noodle and a napkin. And it was one of those, like, it is possible with the awareness. And when people see it, and, we were out front sorting and separating in front of everybody. And, people left with a whole new impact and a whole new mindset of, oh my goodness, like, and when you think about it, this is all the trash we're using at home, maybe, but now you're seeing everybody is combined on top of each other. Like it's overwhelming to see how quickly it accumulates.
Explain how you work with companies when you do this. How does that look for you guys?
So it looks a little different for everybody. So there's not really a one size fits all. You have different size venues. Out here in Missouri, we've got a lot of room. So people like to spread out. We've got woods, we've got hills, we've got rivers, streams, So depending on what the festival grounds look like and how many people they're expecting to attend, we'll work with the production company and the venue owners to come up with a plan for, trash can placement, sorting placement, education placement, that type of stuff, as well as helping us find volunteers, which everybody loves a free ticket. So, for a little bit of legwork, we can get people in for free in addition. So there's a lot of facets to it, but.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. So we were talking a little bit about, a little bit about all of the different issues that come with this very broad subject. I mean, we said we're doing a sustainability episode. This could go on for hours, honestly. There's like so many pieces and parts to sustainability when we talk about that. But when we talk about it on the surface in the cannabis industry, the first thing people think about is all of the packaging, right? All this packaging that sometimes we unnecessarily do for marketing purposes, put around these products. Colorado had it before where we could collect and reuse or have patients bring in and reuse their packaging. But then, of course, regulations put a halt to that. So couldn't do that anymore. I believe we can recycle, but again, it doesn't really cover some of the issues that come up. What if somebody gives you something that has stuff in it? Are we able to recycle cartridges? What if they have oil in them? What if they're not completely cleaned out? So we have to make sure they're completely cleaned out, things like that. When I have questions for everybody here, because Amy, you are in the industry now packaging products. So I pose these questions to you as well. And then Becky and Kristin, you are working within the cannabis industry to try to create a smaller footprint for us in one business at a time, if you will. How do these regulations hinder us as an industry from being able to do these things that would be more helpful environmentally speaking? Who wants to go first on that? That's a loaded question. We'll go with Amy first. Yeah.
I love this question. That is such a tough thing because cannabis does have so many things that we are forced to abide by with the regulations. But when I was in college, I was bartending at the same time to pay my bills, of course. And that's really where I got the idea to make my final project on strictly the impacts of the regulations and how it limits our sustainability growth. And I think that water is a huge one, and the indoor grow space. Of course, this is kind of all the state of Colorado. Mm-hmm. Yes, I know other states allow outdoor grows under such laws, but state of Colorado, for example, only has home grow laws. So we have 350 days of sun here, and you can't we can use that light, but it has to be clouded. It can't be visible from the outside. You
Yeah,
can't.
you have to put up barriers.
Mhm.
Public eye cannot be viewed, and so that does hinder people. I mean, though, I will say one of my neighbors, right on the corner of the main, on the corner of my street and the main road that everyone has to get to the school. They had just a single little plant grow in the summer, and I watched it grow. I saw it when I was like, "Oh, that's a little pot plant," and I watched it, and they took it in the 1st of October when the weather got here a little crazy, but. I wanted to say something, so like, I see you.
Yeah. I
Um,
actually grow outside
did
too.
anything.
Yeah,
right. I
they
think
don't
most people do. My mom did as a kid
unless
growing up.
unless you're like really doing the thing. I think that you can kind of get away with that, but and as long as it, like you got to make sure they're not supposed to cross the fence line and all this stuff like that. You're supposed to keep it private. But really, I think the biggest concern is like, feeding the underground market on that level. And so, but things can be done in a basement, everybody. So just keep that in mind. Big basements exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Which is a whole different part of electricity and consumption, and a whole nother different
right.
aspect of our environmental sustainability. So,
But speaking on the packaging piece, just because I do want to get into the water piece as well, and the lights and I mean, it all impacts us greatly. How do you, Amy, though, for your product, are you able to sustainably package your product under the regulations that are required in Colorado?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping the gun, already hitting all the topics.
No,
Yeah.
do it. I love it.
But yeah, so with packaging, the toughest thing is your choice of material. And of course, plastic, everything has to be CR, child resistant, certified. So it has to have some kind of child resistant mechanism, which for the most part is always plastic. They have made them in metal tins now, but the most common that we all see is plastic. And like, that is something that it's really important that the company is aware that, like, for example, Wana brands, they do have a company. It's not supposed to be forever plastic. It is supposed to break down in a landfill. Calyx Containers does simple things like that as well. And it's the bioplastic area is its own realm in general, but I think just being smart with what you purchase, like for example, Under the Rose, we utilize glass only because it can be cleaned out. Our labels are easy to pull off. And that way, I keep my jewelry and my weed in them now. So hopefully we try to encourage
everything. I reuse all my glass. I mean, you need a jar for something, I got it.
So what about in Missouri? Are you finding that there are some of those regulations are going to hinder your process a little bit and make it a little bit more difficult?
So there's a couple of things here. Becky, do you want to speak on the biodegradable versus compostable before we get into anything
I do,
else?
yeah, because that's been that's a couple times that's popped up. So biodegradable nowadays really is a greenwashing term. Like fossil fuel-based plastics can be biodegradable. It just means an item's going to break down over time. A lot of times it'll make for harder cleanup because now this plastic bag is biodegraded, and I have all these little plastics that are impossible to clean up. So just even looking for the term compostable as opposed to, compostable means that it is all plant-based, and to be certified compostable will break down within 180 days in a commercial composting facility without leaving any sort of chemical trace or anything behind. So there's just even that, like, everything says biodegradable and people think that's great, but like read the fine print on, well, what is that biodegradable material actually made out of? Is it plant-based? Is it petroleum-based?
These are good points that you're making. Language is very important. It's just like
huge.
Just because it says organic on the packaging doesn't mean it's good for you. So stop thinking that kind of stuff.
Right, exactly.
So this is very important, and I love it. And we love clarifying our language. So thank you for doing that. Please.
Another thing that I want to touch, the small plastics recycling, and I presume it would be maybe the same all around, but I know here in Missouri, they say the machines sort by size and shape of the going through. So even though your little tube is made of recyclable plastic, anything smaller than a softball falls through the grading system and ends up in the trash anyways. So that is a huge problem with, yes, these things are recyclable. We can recycle them all day long, but unless you're taking them to a sorted place that is specifically for this plastic, then it's going to end up in the landfill. I absolutely love the tin thing that you were talking about. To me, that's my favorite material. I saw that at the festival for the first, not the festival, but the Cannabis for the first time. The tin can, it's got the little child-proof lock, made from recycled materials, can be recycled. Glass is great. However, there is also a thing as a sand shortage out there from people pirating sand from countries and to make glass. And while it is recyclable, it doesn't get recycled as much. And
I'm learning so much right now.
like there's a lot of little aspects of. So like I said, the tin to me is my favorite. Like
There's
aluminum would be a great alternative, like infinitely recyclable. And it usually gets recycled. You can cash it in for money. People like getting money for recycling, especially in the country where they don't have recycling.
Is this a cost-effective means too? Because that's a lot of the reason why some of these companies aren't utilizing
plastic is cheap.
Alternative.
Styrofoam's cheap. That's why we can't get rid of styrofoam, without laws that do it. It's cheap. People are going to save that money over, unless you actually have someone that cares about the earth.
Right. Which you should, because
everybody should. We all live here.
You may not live to see it, but your loved ones will, and they got to deal with it. And that's not an okay stance to have. I'm not going to be here, so it doesn't matter.
Right. And that's actually one cool thing since I have started Erase the Trace. There's a gentleman I used to work with. And he was definitely had that mentality. He came to me one day and said, I'll be honest with you, I feel like by the time any of it matters, I'm going to be dead anyways. And I was just like, well, damn, like, what about your kids? Like, he has kids that,
Yeah.
And, but after working with him over the years and just little things, all of a sudden, 4 years later, he'd come up and tell me this story with, oh my God, did you hear this on the news? This is crazy, blah, blah, blah. And, you could see that all of a sudden he cared. We stopped doing the styrofoam and we did the composting, which was, oh, just for you, Becky. We'll recycle just for you, Becky. But then it turned into, like, you actually care. People do care. You just have to be reminded that you do, or reminded why you do, or
you have to put effort into
everyone's just become so jaded of, like you said, if we don't take these, or even taking all these small actions, it doesn't really matter because of the corporations, which is true. But that's a hard thing to say, because then people hear that and go, well, fuck, what I do doesn't matter anyways.
Yeah, but it does matter. You don't have to apologize for language.
Okay. But it does matter. And you're right, the corporations, look at what we saw when everything did shut down for those few weeks with COVID. Pollution cleared up in over areas and cities that scientists thought was never going to be possible. And without running the factories for a few days or weeks or whatever.
Yeah,
it's possible. It is all possible. We just all have to.
Side note, John Oliver just did a whole show on Teflon, and so go check that out.
Yeah,
that is, oh my God,
a whole nother aspect of.
I'll have to check. I say I don't know much about Teflon.
Go ahead.
Just to touch back on the biodegradable versus compostable in cannabis packaging. Not biodegradable, but plastics versus compostable plastics. Those actually have to be sorted and they look exactly the same. So without knowing that a plastic is actually compostable, a lot of times it'll end up in a recycling center with other plastics, and it's not actually plastic. So it actually can damage the batch of plastic that's being recycled while at the same time not being composted as was its original intent. So
and vice versa.
It's crazy. So it's like this giant web of problems that a lot of it stems from just really needing a full-scale shift.
Uh-oh. Did she stop?
Oh, I think I knew where she was going though, in terms of
everybody all at once, which is really, really hard. Am I loading?
You just went out for a second, but we caught what you were saying there. This is, okay. I'm so glad to bring you ladies on, because literally, I can't say it enough. I'm learning so much. These are things that I didn't even think that we were going to even, I thought, we'll talk about this, but it's so in depth. You could get into this, the plastics problem for yeah, I mean, we could just go and go and go, right? I didn't think about the fact that they look exactly the same. And then if you're doing like a recycling or like reusing that plastic to create something else, and there's not all plastic in that, that's going to screw up the whole process, basically.
And then another problem with the compostable plastics is without having commercial composting facilities available to actually break those down, they tell you just to throw it in the landfill. And then at that point, like, yes, it's made of plant-based materials, but are we really better off because it's still being landfilled? It's not going to go anywhere. I know I've heard like Portland, I guess for a while they had, the commercial composting, but they ran into that problem where they couldn't tell the difference between compostable and non-compostable. They had to hire more people.
We have to mark our cannabis products. Maybe they should have to
I
start
think it should all be color coded is what I think. Yeah. Color coding's nice and easy.
Easy, yes.
I feel like there's so many better solutions to recycling in general that in school we spent probably 2 years alone just on the plastic section of it. And there's just like you ladies have mentioned, like there is so many terms and like greenwashing experiences with plastic and plastic in general, no matter if it's bioplastic, green plastic, whatever you want to call it. It's all plastic and it's all bad and it's not going to a good place.
Single use sucks.
Yeah, exactly. It's just single use. And I think it's so important with cannabis to just like really, when dispensaries push like exactly selling. I love tins too. Like tins and glass are things that I personally recycle all over my house. And it's like, these are things that people will reuse and, like gift other people's things in, like put your jewelry in it, like give, like, I'll give my girlfriend's geodes in them or something for a birthday present. And it's just such a more
presentation. Even.
That was such a Colorado thing to say. I was
such a Colorado thing to say, but everyone wants a beautiful geode.
She said, I'm going to put my girlfriend's geodes in this tin that There you go. Like, I mean,
I have this tin for your geodes. I love it.
I too love bath salts. I'm putting bath salts in here. Do you want my homemade bath salts in my tin?
I love that. No, I absolutely love that idea. But what about does hemp have a place in this conversation? Is it good? Is it bad? What is?
I think it's good, but then we still have that compostable problem. Yeah. You know what I mean? If we could switch everything over to compostable materials, that would be great if we can color code them. And then again, the commercial composting facilities to close the circle, because we're still like, we've got this linear economy that, we're turning, but we've got to.
Yeah, they aren't.
And then lack of education.
Lack of education. Yeah.
The disconnect between the companies doing it, the consumer using it, and then what happens with it once it goes into the receptacle that you're dumping it into.
Right.
Yeah. There's a huge amount of disconnect. And also, I mean, unfortunately, some of this stuff isn't going to be the most profitable, at least at first. Like with most new things, it's going to take some trial and error. New systems need to be built. Big machines need to be literally engineered from the ground
processing.
up. Yeah. So it's going to take investment dollars, and there's not going to be a whole lot of return on that investment, especially up front. So, finding the funding and people dedicated to fixing this problem specifically, we're going to keep running into the same things like over and over again. But hemp is awesome for a lot of things. It's a great replacement for lumber. They're doing the hempcrete now. So, I mean, it definitely has its place. I just don't know if in cannabis packaging, with the way systems are right now, that is its niche. I definitely think we should get there. And there are a couple of companies. There's a couple of companies that are really working to help, sort of close the cannabis plastics loop. Santa Packaging definitely deserves a mention here. There's their team over there is really working hard to, just basically stop virgin materials from being utilized for cannabis packaging to begin with. So only starting with recycled materials, which currently is not the mode of operation for most packaging manufacturers. But yeah, there's hemp definitely has its place, I guess is my point.
I just believe it can save the world. So I just want to see where
Oh,
we were at on that.
For sure.
I agree. As long as everyone gets their head out of their ass about what the difference is.
Right. It's just like,
And we did try to reach out to Santa Packaging, but it was very last minute. And hopefully we can maybe get him on here for one of our little follow-up sessions. And
yep, absolutely.
Yeah, just wanted to shout it out because I don't know of anybody else, and they're also doing ocean plastic recovery as well. So
they have the hemp line and ocean plastic.
Yeah,
that is so awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to him answering my email.
We'll see more people like them pop up because they started very small and they're growing. So there definitely is an appetite out there for it. There's definitely people willing to pay a little bit more, knowing that what they're buying is having less of an impact, because as everybody's mentioned, pretty much everything we do has an impact. We're just trying to lessen it to the degree that we can with the resources we have available, and then keep working to build more resources.
Right. Absolutely. So I know that Amy is dying to talk about this, but how does the growing of cannabis impact us? And let's start with water. Let's start.
Yeah, growing. Oh my gosh, growing is just such an underspoken thing because we all are just looking at it like, oh my gosh, the grow ops here, there's grow ops there. Well, in just Denver alone, there are grow ops literally everywhere, so you can't escape them. And so, I mean, the water is one thing. It's the water, it's the HVAC systems, it's the things I mentioned earlier. They're forced to grow them inside for the most part. If they're large scale, they'll be forcibly inside unless it's like miles away from anything and has huge fences again. But we are Colorado, so yes, we do have tons of sun, but we can't really utilize that as much if it's indoor because we do have winters. So it is definitely tough, and there's a year-round demand for cannabis. So I totally get that and support that. I do love seeing this industry grow. It's such an interesting thing. Water alone definitely is a huge chunk. I mean, Colorado, anywhere in the West is already highly struggling with water. California owns most of our water. So for us, even, tapping into their weed, we're growing our weed. So it's a lot of water consumption in general. The power consumption alone too was really, really crazy. In school, I pulled up this time. It's the Denver alone. The Department of Public Health released this. It was 9% of total electricity in 2011 was for cannabis, and now it's like upwards of 25% of all of our electricity is just cannabis grows. So, and like that's crazy that we are growing that much weed, and that's my home. I love it.
Well, you think about adult use facilities plus medical facilities that were, and then just continuing to go from there.
Yeah, I just want to make a point about the. Listen, I was saying earlier before we came on the show, I don't know how long the West is going to survive in this game. There are droughts and there are fires, right? So it's like all dry and everything's burning down. We're borrowing water from each other, which great, we should be doing. But also, like, think about the impact that has if we got to ship water in, right? What does that take? And what kind of impact does that have?
Bringing water in is such a tough thing too, when we have to do that, because we're looking at where to bring it, and that turns to larger systems that we rely on, like desalination processes, because soon we're going to have to go to the ocean. Like we can only tap into aquifers so many times. Right. People can own aquifers though. Privatization of water is dangerous in my opinion. I think, the state of Montana, where my family lives, I think I love just talking about their river systems, because, no one can own the rivers there, versus in Colorado, anyone can own the river, and you can barb it. You can bar people's access to it. You can make your section dangerous to the public even. And that also directly relates to overconsumption. And that's just even personal use, but then we get into cannabis use too. If these big companies big corporations are getting into people, big landowners with water access, our longevity is going to be tough. So looking at the desalination thing is a whole other world of it, and it's super scary. And I think it's definitely, water is something that I think all cannabis companies and all industries alone should be focusing on first and foremost in the West is right now, like, what are we going to do 5 to 10 years from now when we can't tap into the Colorado River system?
Yeah,
I think even that people don't think about what it takes to the amount of water that it takes to recycle or to process, other, things. So that in itself, we do have to be thinking about water and rain and the ecosystem, and why when we build, concrete jungles, that we don't have rain somewhere. It's because you stopped the ability to uptake.
Just a little educational moment about rain and why it rains in places is all because of terpenes, you guys. It's about communication. If you don't have plants to communicate their needs or release those chemicals, then we're not going to get the rain. And so this is what she says. That's what she means when she says we have these concrete jungles and then there's no rain. Well, no shit, because there's no plants, there's no trees, there's nothing calling for the rain. There's no chemical release for that rain.
In college, one of my professors always told us that the weather comes from the ground up.
Yes.
Always.
Fascinating. I did not know that.
Circle. So I did find see an article from MJ Biz Daily that actually talks about how some California growers are trying to combat the drought situation and what they're doing and systems that they're putting in place. It actually says cannabis producers are turning to retention ponds and then building up those systems of reservoirs to start storing waters for those growing seasons. It's a pretty in-depth article, and I'll try to actually get it from one place to the other and link it. But one of the little quotes that made the most sense to me in regard to the impact of water, let me see if I can find it real quick.
I have some of those.
There's a lot more of this article that I did not go through. I was like, oh crap.
So much happening.
But they were actually it goes into the depth of what they're trying to do.
I have that article too, I think. I'm not sure, but I think I did.
I meant to pull the actual quote out because I knew that was going to happen, that I wasn't going to be able to find it once I wanted to actually pull it out. But I will actually just post the article into.
I just want to say that they're rethinking how they use water more efficiently, so that, so that, because if we have to borrow it from other people, and that's going to impact our footprint too, we have to see how we can use it more efficiently so that we don't lose anything, we don't waste anything. If you put that article into the chat, because it breaks it all down for you in there also.
And it's another thing too that I think that even when we're talking about, I think more and more people are going to start purchasing more mindful, and that's another thing that a dispensary can start to advertise in their grow ops. It's like, we are safely and trying to be mindful about our water consumption, and if they're making note of it, it's another selling point. Like, people they want that, and I think that we're on the rise of that. People are going to start wanting products that they don't feel.
It's attractive. It's very, very attractive.
Can I ask you guys a question?
I'm saying?
I said, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So I was just thinking about it, and there's a ton of research in like agricultural crops to find like drought resistant strains and stuff. Is there that type of research being done in the cannabis fields for like various growing conditions and stuff?
Maybe not here. I don't think
on a large scale. I know people that are looking at that, like growers who are interested in those things. But I don't think like on a large scale that's being considered at all. But really, this is one of the things that I actually do want to talk about, but I want to bring in some people who are actually like have been cultivating for years and years, is how overbreeding is actually impacting us as well. Because when we overbreed these plants, then just so we can get like a larger THC content, for example, we're trying to get higher THC. And to me, that's overbreed. Somebody can disagree with me if you want to. It's fine. But I feel like it's not really conscious breeding, at least. Because it's also, when we're doing that, we're negating some of the factors that are important with the plant. First of all, having a multitude of cannabinoids and terpenes is super important for you as a consumer. But when we talk about the plant itself, it's actually in original design, it's designed to protect itself from predators. It's designed to protect itself from drought. It's designed to stay resilient through, if there's like a powdery mildew outbreak or a mold or bacteria around. It's the plant is made to resist those things. But if we continue to breed just to get this thing, to get this effect, then we're going to breed out some of the other effects. That means that we're going to have to use maybe more chemical pesticides or more, we'll order more biobugs. That's a packaging issue. We could talk about it. But still, it's still like there's all these things extra that we would have to do. You might have to water it more because it needs more water and it can't sustain a drought. It can't handle it. So now we got to bring in more water for this plant. It might need a different amount of light, or different types of lights aren't going to work as well, or something like that. It just different things happen when you do this over and over again without being conscious about it. I don't know. What do you ladies have any opinions on that at all?
I'm a big supporter of the cannabis that will require the least amount of water is probably the oldest of our strains that we are holding on to. Yeah. I think I totally agree with that, because they're going to be the ones that are going to be the most resilient to the droughts, to the environmental factors, to the sunlight, to the lack of sunlight. They're adapted, and I think it's also it could get so complex if you're looking at which strains are like native-ish to your region. I think those areas are a little gray with we know where our landrace strains come from, of course, but which one can I actually get access to these days in 2021?
Right. It's very difficult to get access to a landrace.
Yeah. And there are a couple of different research. I know that there was a woman that did the South African landrace strains. Dr. B actually has her contact information. We should sit down with her. And he's actually going over to Nepal, and we've been building on a thing to try and start researching the natural growth of the plant in Nepal. Where is it being grown the best? Why is it being the environmental factors? And if they were to bring cannabis back to Nepal in the medical and research way that they will allow for it, what's going to happen, or what's going to happen if they legalize cannabis there, and will it be affected? So these are, I think, internationally what we're thinking of. We don't even think about it when we're talking about our indoor grows and our warehouses and the things here. And wouldn't that be amazing if they allowed for greenhouses here, open sunroof greenhouses for us to actually use that if they can't. There's in one of the other articles I was reading, they talked about solar being a beneficial. If we are running these indoor grows, they should be required to use solar power.
Yeah, absolutely, they should.
Yeah.
So these are regulations and being in the room and what people can be lobbying. People are lobbying for it. The companies are lobbying for their ways. These packaging companies, that I heard a rumor that in Colorado that when all this packaging talk started, that the person that was involved happened to own a packaging company, and lo and behold, wouldn't you think that that all of a sudden we are inundated with these packagation requirements?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's insane. Some of the, I mean, well, I always say follow the rules until we change the rules. Really, but here's my thing. We have these different sustainability practices. Do some of them impact each other in in this negative way where it's just what do we do? When we talk about solar panels, right, and everything, there's some kind of impact there, right, that is not
How it's
great.
made. Yeah.
I have a whole bunch of friends actually that work
I
in
kind
the
of saw
solar
your
industry.
face, and that's why I'm asking this
Yeah.
question.
I have a whole lot of friends that work in the solar industry, and it is like, it's a great concept, but then you hear about how, you know, it's all the panels are non-recyclable at the end, and I don't know. It was kind of like there is like a little everything has this little, like, dark little seedy underground, and unfortunately we don't have a perfect solution. You know, the sun.
Maybe take care of the earth.
Yeah, right.
I mean, everybody
But-
has to care. I think part of the problem is that it's
the batteries and
it's difficult to make it easy because of the, like, a lot of these things that we talk about, they make life so much more convenient, right? And sometimes
convenience is the sale.
right, and sometimes we're at a point that the convenience is almost a necessity.
Convenience is killing us, though.
Right. I mean, we're all sitting here on our necessity to have this conversation, right? And so yeah, I always thought about, like, with recycling programs, because I've always heard from people who are more educated than I am in this subject of sustainability, that that the recycling program is kind of it's kind of bunk, you know. That most things don't get recycled, that a lot of things end up in a landfill. We are living WALL-E right now. If y'all have not seen that movie, please go watch it. It was like a glimpse into our future, and I don't think enough of you have seen it.
I just watched Idiocracy the other day for the first time with the trash avalanche and everything. Like, it was like, the future is real and it starts now, and this is scary, and we're headed that way. Like you said, WALL-E's even beyond Idiocracy. Like,
yeah. These movies that are showing us what could be.
It's real.
This is what's happening. It's actually happening right now. It's based in reality.
Y'all haven't seen Ready Player One or read the book or listened to it. It talks about that whole, like, what happens when we destroy ourselves, when oil energy is no longer available to us.
Well, that's why trillionaires are looking for another place to live. That's why that's happening.
It talks about that too. Is a billionaire company, like,
you could use your money to save this planet, or it's more cost effective for you to look for a new one. Great. Okay.
I really feel like, yeah, everybody's escaping. I feel the answers are in our oceans. Honestly, we'd like, space exploration is great, but I feel we need to be spending more money in the oceans, because you go deep to fix, you go inside to fix, right?
Living like SpongeBob. Like,
there's answers in there somewhere. Yeah.
Oh yeah, big believer of deep.
Find Atlantis.
And the ocean has so many answers to so many of our problems. It's amazing. I think that's something so overrated. To loop back to our, you mentioned, Fair, the bad sides of of all of our sustainability practices that we're adapting to. Mm-hmm. They all have such horrible ones that we kind of all have learned about in school, like, are all just kind of like, you know, the whole green plastics and the bioplastics. It's been like such a toxic cycle that we got into that was, you know, almost like irreversible. My side view on that is, I think if anyone's talking about it and if even trying and being mindful with your plastic, you're taking a step towards the positive direction. But I don't think any of those things are good. But it's like solar panels. I don't quote me on this, but I believe it's a finite source that we have to mine to make them. Yeah. So, you know, that mining process. I mean, mining alone, like, that's already a dangerous activity. And then, you know, we have to, again, we can't recycle these things. And it's just like, what can we do to, like, not avoid this?
And you got wave, like, we could use the waves in the ocean for energy. There's water energy, water mills. That's what I was gonna ask. I say windmills. You still have the battery storage, which is still
But I was gonna ask that. I was gonna ask if the benefits outweigh the cost, which the cost is that we have to mine these materials, and this thing is not recyclable once it's done. It's done. But is it a good enough energy source to make, you know, that not the use of energy not as
what's the longevity of the solar panel?
Something I heard about recently, and I think it was still new, but some guy came up with a hemp battery where, you know, it's like your lithium batteries are so powerful, whatever, but lithium mining is horrible. Well, this guy found a hemp battery that was so many more times, and I don't know my numbers, but hugely more powerful than this lithium battery. You know, if we could utilize sources like this to hold the energy for, you know, your windmills or your whatever, I don't know.
Comes back to hemp saving
to
the world.
find a way to get rid of that mining side of it. You know, how do you store it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, and like with most new things, like when DVD players first came out, they were like gigantic, you know, they took up a lot of space. And as the technology increased, the resources necessary to get the same output decreased. So hopefully we're moving in a direction that's away from coal. And I don't know that solar or wind or any of them are the answer. Maybe all of them together.
Biodiversity is key with everything, I feel.
Yeah.
Like, we need a little bit of it all.
The more answers, the better.
Exactly.
Yeah, because everything's not going to work. You know, like I can't use ocean power here in Missouri. I mean, unless we get the grid in such a way that y'all don't take it before it gets there, you know.
But along those coasts, that's a great alternative. We have a lot of rivers here, though, you know.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So, you know, different places are going to have different solutions, and developing seriously as like end game development of a variety of stuff, rather than just saying, hey, let's toss all our money into, you know, solar investment or whatever. I think you guys, we just need the diversified investments in everything, because there is not one answer, because it's just this web that we discussed earlier, just so many different.
Too much of anything is a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right. One thing is not the solution. It's not an end all. It's just, we have to look at it holistically as a whole system.
Yeah.
I think, you know, kind of running off what you said, Kristin, in regard to things growing so quickly, like even just in the packaging, like product development and the products that are being created. Did you know that one of the new regulations in Colorado, that 1 gram of concentrate is now going to have to be separated into no less than 10 portions?
Shut your mouth.
How do you even?
How do you do that?
What is happening?
How do you take this and put it into 10 portions and make that?
Do you have to like make a cake and
then
like cut it?
Remember
in,
those like little candies with the dots that you would peel off?
Yes.
You know, maybe
that's a great idea.
I will
have
say
to innovate, and
there's a company, at least one company, right, that's making something called like dab tabs or something. Right. So that might be the solution. But then we eliminate sauces and sugars. And what does that mean for like pens or like syringes with the?
I don't know. These go into effect January 1st, 2022. And so I was actually just talking to G about this, and we have to go over some regulation stuff, but how it impacts you. Okay, so we're looking, the government is looking at it in terms of how consumers are using it, that you know, getting it in one big lump sum is gonna, you know, really hurt that consumer. You know, but I'm like, that makes it easier for them to sell their little, like, you know, pieces to their person. Oh, give me $5 for your dot. Give me $5 for your dot.
Why?
They're saying that they're creating these safety measures to stop the younger ages from reselling it.
Yeah, but if you break a gram up
like
into
you said,
little,
it's already
it's distributed now. You can distribute it now.
It's very clear that whoever makes a lot of these
JT says that clutch and dab tabs are lame, and I would like an explanation on why you think they're lame. So yeah, I mean, this goes back to that packaging thing, where now they got to come up with a new way to package this product. And what does that look like? And how do you make it you know, you got to make sure that it's childproof, opaque packaging. And now you got to make sure that, I mean, the edibles companies did it, but then you see look at their packaging is different, and they had to like create this whole new thing.
I mean, I've seen some pretty cool, like, cardboard, you know, I'm sure the Santa packaging has it, you know, things going on, but like, I have seen some pretty cool products that you didn't utilize plastic or tins. It was recycled cardboard or whatever, and minimize the plastic.
I think dabs taste like pizza because they recycled some Domino's boxes.
No, see,
to
that's bad.
package. I don't see the problem actually.
The grease on the cardboard, it gums everything up. So like any food
Why
I
residue
meant
on
having
cardboard.
pizza with dabs. I was just
Oh.
making a joke, but that's
yeah.
a good observation.
Well, I
Great,
was
thank you.
thinking about the little circle dab cut into pizza slices. Someone's got to have to like do a pizza stamp so that you got like 10 little
Yeah.
triangles or something. I don't know.
But
It
I
was
feel like it
something that caught
eliminates
my
a lot of
eye
the
when I was.
mediums that we use and rely on and enjoy for
And then-
various reasons.
Yeah, I wish that the regulatory whoever's they are would just get together and all agree that we can just reuse packaging. Like if we're doing deli style, why can't a customer bring in the jar that they want to keep their ounce in? Why can't I refill it there? Why,
Right.
if they bring it in empty, I don't even care if they bring it in half. So why can't I refill that? You know what I mean? Like, why is that
Right.
an issue for them, especially if it's empty? And
I think they look at it like in the food, maybe in terms of sanitation, and if that person then takes their product home with what you there, and something happens, and there's no way for you as a facility to say, that wasn't us. You brought us a package that had stuff in it.
Okay.
I mean, okay.
Okay, but like, I mean, I'm just going to create a whole new issue here, but you know, when you go to the bar, you use a glass that somebody else has used, right? They wash it and
Right.
and so if we wash them, like okay, you can't use this jar you just brought in.
But
They
here's
say you
another.
have to, there's actually like a specific kind of like LED, like a blue light kind of thing, that sanitation thing that you would have to put it through. And the whole, it's another expense.
We're creating
and
more
you
problems.
can't do it,
Like,
but when I was, when I worked at the dispensary down in Denver, that was something when all of this came about, I was like, what the fuck? And I started like trying to brainstorm things. I'm like, oh, can we reuse these? And they're like, no, we can take it in and recycle it and do a point system and try to make it, so that, encourage people to bring in their containers, but to reuse them, no, we weren't allowed to. I mean, it's a smaller, but the same is that I get my little plastic baggies and I put it into my big safe bag, and then I take it home and I redistribute it into my, drams that I've collected from other facilities that have, that's what they give you, and you can't.
The sandwich bag's not recyclable, right? Not even recyclable.
If you take it to like a grocery store type,
where they have all the plastic bag recycling
Yeah.
stuff,
right?
Yeah,
but not in your regular at home.
No.
recycling.
So like sometimes to not give you all that bulky packaging, they'll put it in like a plastic bag and then put that into your whatever zipper bag, right? And I'm just thinking, like, we have this huge impact. I don't know what I mean, I know one step at a time, but okay, so for each of you, this question: how do we as consumers not feel overwhelmed by all of it? Like, just like, what do we do? Like, do plastic bags recycle? We can't recycle. It's just like, it's frustrating. What do we do? Do we still do the things? We educate ourselves.
My favorite answer to this, because it comes up a lot, where like people will find out that I work with Erase the Trace or whatever, and they'll start like apologizing for things that they do still, and I usually will just cut them off and say, stop. What you have to figure out in your own life what makes sense. So if it makes sense that you have a grocer that will refill your detergents, then do that. And if that makes sense for you, then do it. If reusable shopping bags are your gig, go for it. It's about figuring out what fits into your life, and then just making that effort. You don't have to do everything all at once. You don't have to be a vegan. You don't have to have these like insane structures that you have to go around. You just do what you can in your life and in your routine, and just make the effort to improve. Give yourself a goal, like once a year I'm gonna add a couple more things to my list, and as it becomes routine, the things you did last year are just part of how you do it now. And that's my favorite answer, because it's there again, there's not one right answer. There's just not.
When those conscious actions start becoming the subconscious habits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they affect people.
Yeah, I think it's also just, it's so important to not look at it like all at once, kind of just like what you're saying, you know, you don't want to look at
Feels
it
overwhelming.
all just
Step by
like,
step.
yeah, it's overwhelming. So I love that answer too. It's, you know, it's just like whatever you can fit into your life. I think that's what's important. And, you know, like kind of what we're talking about, like I think the talking of changing people's mindsets, this communication about sustainability topics is so valuable because it makes us all a little bit more mindful about like the next behavior that we make and next decision that we make. And I just think that that's really what we can do.
The education programs, I think that, you know, the visibility and showing people, you know, yes, we can take these little steps, and just exactly what you guys are doing with Erase the Trace, and just being there in the communities and showing them and being an example, and actually showing that, yep, it's just all we can, if all we can do is pick up the garbage and dispose of it properly, then that's what we can do. And everyone can do that. I mean, I know in Colorado, you know, every spring there's a mass, you know, community cleanups in every area where there's a set week that there's communities going out to clean up, you know, everything that's been thrown out through the winter and is now in the snow melt and on the side of the road.
You see it all now.
Yeah. And so I think, and even just events here, you know, so I do live in a mountain town where things are, you know, they try to be conscious because, you know, I'm in a ski resort. There is that mass consumption, you know, but we're also out in nature, and you know, so people want to take that conservatory effort. And so they have like at concerts. Am I echoing?
Yes. I don't know why you
Is
started.
that better? Echoing. Can you hear me?
Yes. Better.
I can't hear you guys now though. Okay, that's me. Oh well, we'll see what happens. That at concerts and such, they have the tent set up and someone's standing there saying, okay, you go ahead and drop it in that receptacle or in that one or in that hole. And, you know, this is a bottle. And it's, again, something that each individual can take home or not. And it's just but like I said, even here, I think too, was getting other people on board with my system. I'm composting. Don't put any, you know, food in the garbage. What? What can go in the compost? And even though I have the compost sign printed out from my local composting, you know, facility, of what can go in our compost, and I have it right there on my compost bin. You can put all this stuff in here. If you have a question about it, leave it on the counter. But I can't sit there and police people that come into my house that aren't my, you know, I mean, I would put my garbage out.
I would beg to differ with that. I would say you can police anybody you want in your house.
It's your house.
It's your house.
I do have signs posted everywhere. So just so we're clear.
I actually, when I lived in Greece, my mom would come to visit, and I would like call her about a week before she came to visit to tell her that she needed to start throwing away her toilet paper and not flushing it, because she would clog my pipe. So you got to throw that stuff away, and you just got to be like really clean about it and keep everything like really sanitary around your space or whatever. But you can't flush toilet paper and stuff in certain areas. And I didn't live in like a city. I didn't live in Athens or anything. I lived in like a small little town. So,
little village.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can police people in your house is the point of me telling that story. But I was going to say, you had made a comment about the programs. I think that I had said earlier that in order to get the public involved, we're going to like, it has to be easy, you know, or the public's not going to do it, generally speaking. I mean, people that devote their lives and actually give a shit are going to do it, or at least attempt it in the best way possible. But generally speaking, if it's not super easy, and not in this country anyway, if you're listening from a different country, kudos to you. But in this country, we want convenience. So I was thinking, and I've always thought this, that it could be really like job creation, if you will, that, you know, people don't wash their recycling and it ends up in the landfill. But if we had that job, somebody would do it. Also, by the way, just because I like to harp on it, And just because I think it's important, pay your people a living wage. Listen, your burger is not going to cost that much more if you pay the people serving it to you a living wage. Neither is your cannabis, by the way. Also, the reason you got to wait in line for an hour to get your Wendy's burger right now is because Wendy's, a very rich corporation that contributes to the impact on the environment hugely, more hugely than any of us together do. They won't pay their people a living wage, and that's why you have to wait in line for a half hour. And they can really not increase the cost of your burger and still do it. And that's my I'm a stand on that. Cannabis industry, do better. Really. I'm tired of seeing $12 and $13 wages. That's BS. And you know it's BS, and I know it's BS. So stop it.
It is not sustainable whatsoever to be paying people $12, $13 an hour
at all.
And budtending is like, I have done it for years, and you are on your feet, you have long days, you are helping people, you are like working out at an Italian restaurant, relaying wine all day, you are
let's
busy.
not even talk about the job itself. Let's talk about the job itself. You have to get a background check. You have to wear a badge. You are under you are under scrutiny for everything you do. If you screw up, like literally it could cost you your livelihood. Are you kidding me that you're not paying these people at least $15? By the way, minimum wage should be $25 an hour. You can argue with me if you want to, but look at inflation and look at the raise of minimum wage. Inflation kept going up, minimum wage did not. And if it had, at the rate of inflation, it would be about $25 an hour. Don't argue with me. I know I'm talking about a little bit. So
I think the cannabis industry could use set itself up to be a good example, though. Like if we made our wages sustainable for people, why aren't people looking at us then? Because people are going to want to work in cannabis, and cannabis is going to continue to grow if people can pay their bills in cannabis. And that's like something all dispensaries, warehouse owners, trimmers need to be paid livable wages, and like it needs to balance out with the bud tender tips, and it needs to go all the way down to the extractors and the growers, and it needs to trickle everywhere. It can't, like, the wealth needs to be a little bit more spread. That minimum wage.
Anybody touching that plant should be paid and to concentrate on that plant. Yep. And that's it. They shouldn't have to have another job. They shouldn't be out here door dashing or
they shouldn't be in their own throws trying to sling weed on the side.
Nah, exactly. They shouldn't have to do any of that. That's just, you know what? They should be growing at home for themselves, and they don't have to hustle it or nothing. Like literally, you want them to concentrate the most on the thing that is the most important, especially if I see some of the wages y'all are offering in cultivation centers. I can't with y'all. I cannot. This is the most important part of the process. I cannot, especially those companies that have multiple levels to their business. It's a dispensary. It's a processing center. You got a kitchen. You got to grow. Shut up. Pay them. Okay. Sorry. It's my hill I'm going to die on.
Could not.
It's my hill I'm going to die
But again, when it's not, it helps with that whole idea of like being taken care of, being able to offer loyalty, being able to, sustain and be happy in life. If we're just working for the dollar, but not, getting to do anything but be mad at our employer for not paying us enough because we're sitting here busting our ass, then our mind turns to, okay, well, what else can I do that, and then that employer ends up on the losing side, and they have to.
It costs more to retrain a new employee. It costs you more money.
Well, and so we're a medical state here. We don't have recreational, but we're working on that. But I stand fast by I don't want to say most, but a lot of people that use cannabis recreationally are actually also using it medicinally. So
everybody.
Yes, everybody is.
Like,
everybody.
But
you've ever had a beer or a glass of wine after work? It's the
like
same
a doctor. It's a big job, and it's a big responsibility, and the pay should be commensurate with the level of responsibility that's being placed on these people. If you give somebody the wrong strain, if you tell somebody like me that, oh, well, this is an indica and it's a sativa, I'm going to freak out because they give me high levels of anxiety and I don't enjoy it at all. And then I've just wasted my money and had a bad day because somebody didn't do their job right because they didn't get paid enough to care.
And
that's not okay.
That's not okay. And since you said that, if we're going to make laws on cannabis, listen, I think that that there should be cannabis community members, people that are involved in the advocacy, not the business. Okay, that's not what I'm saying, but the advocacy at some level should be involved with helping create these regulations, because we're wasting money on things that don't matter and not putting money into things that do matter, like testing that plant for everything that it's got, so that that what you're getting is going to help you relax and is not going to creep on your anxiety. And the way you will know that is because you know the level of cannabinoids percentage wise that are in your plant and the level of terpenes that are in your plant. Now I'm echoing, so technical difficulties, it's what happens.
We don't have many places that actually release terpene profiles here yet, so unfortunately
because they're not required to.
It's very rare here in Colorado.
They're not required
forever. They're not required.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It's just now at this point that because the discussions of it, in the social aspect and our cannabis communities, it drives it now. It's kind of a trickle down, and more specific companies will note the profile, or But I mean, 9 times out of 10, if I walk into a facility and they brought in someone's wholesale and I ask them about the terpene profile, they don't know. Their facility didn't let them try the product. No one gave them notes on it. They get the THC testing and maybe and maybe the CBD testing. But now it's a range. The way that Colorado makes you test is that they have to test it X amount of times, and then they give you a range of what that was, and then you get to guess.
There's a lot of I don't know.
Another conversation.
So much to unpack with this industry. And everything.
Because if you require terpene testing, right? If you require also additional terpene testing, cannabinoid testing, then that's going to cost more money. So, like, what I think will happen when people hear these conversations is they go, well, we should be requiring the terpene testing. And so then they require the testing for additional cannabinoids and terpenes, right? But then they don't take away the cost of other things that are absolutely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like childproof packaging for
yeah, like
certain
come
things.
on, not being able to recycle our containers or reuse our containers. I mean, those things. Yeah. I mean, they would really change everything. I apologize to the West Coast. We absolutely missed.
7 minutes in, I was like, oh, and then totally blew by it.
Yeah.
I did want to just kind of mention, this kind of goes back to more the growing aspect, but there is this, as I was doing some research, there's a group called the Cannabis Conservancy, and they're actually a certification group that helps with sustainability in grows, for cultivation. They're committed to the science and the, of sustainability. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, it's still, capitalizing on it. It's a paid service certification kind of thing, but they're educating on plant sustainability. And so I thought that was pretty cool to see that there are collective groups out there thinking about this plant. I mean, we are not the only ones. There is this huge community of trying to preserve genetics, making sure that those landrace strains or those are not breeded out. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen grows with beautiful mother plants, and then some grower that didn't care, let it die.
No.
Or natural disease happens, things happen, and so, but being able to have someone that cares enough to say, oh, I recognize that there's a genetic deficiency here, or something's going on with this plant. I need to take care of it so that we can maintain this. I think that these younger growers that call themselves master growers, I want to smack them. You can be a stellar grower, but there is in the terms of agriculture and what, professionals, what a master grower is, it's education, time, you can't be 21 years old and be a master grower. You haven't been long enough. You haven't known enough about.
Have you been growing since you're 5?
Master grower, son.
Been growing since they're 5 years old.
Oh my gosh,
For
the whole
50.
master grower term is such a funky thing. I got my permaculture design certificate in college as well, which I shout out to permaculture. I think permaculture and weed go hand in hand. We can like perfectly learn how to grow weed sustainably, but oh my gosh, the master grower thing in weed is just this whole thing.
It's again, it goes back to this terminology that doesn't. It's starting to not mean anything, you know.
Right.
Well,
But
it's
to bounce off where
confusing.
Megan was, there is another there's a cannabis sustainability work group based in Denver. Just another group of people that are really kind of trying to change the mindset around this. And they just in 2019 they released the Cannabis Environmental Best Management Practices Guide to provide cannabis businesses with an idea of sustainable and environmentally friendly practices. So
The Colorado they did actually just make a regulation that is going to allow for Colorado, the waste, the fibroids and such to be disposed better or utilized. And so there's a win there. And I think that group was had a big hand in it. I was reading that article actually. And, that it's interesting that Colorado government is thinking about sustainability and in that sense, but then passing regulations in regard to 10 separate freaking, gram.
Like, what is that?
What is that? And, and I don't even know how that affects cartridges and other things. We already have the limitations on our edibles and how those are packaged. So, but this drives home always our conversation of be in the room, of why and how these things are happening. Pay attention. They do have like sign up to be a stakeholder, get stakeholder, messages in regard to what's going on. I mean, they usually come 12 hours ahead of the actual meeting. So you can't make it down from the mountains because you have to plan.
Yeah.
But hopefully everything will start to be online too.
So whatever state you're in, regardless of whether or not you have legalization, I imagine that one of your councils, your city council, your county commission, whatever, they're having the conversations. They're having those conversations. And if they allow you to be a part of those conversations, then you should be a part of those conversations. Or at least if they allow you to listen, be in the room if you can. Because that's part of the problem with these regulations is that we're not there. We're not there to say, nah, that doesn't really make sense for this plant, or that doesn't really make sense for, the way that this medicine works, or
the way we can purchase it. Seriously, the way that I get to, if I live far away from my dispensary, I can't purchase extra amount of flour and my extra amount at the same time on the same day.
Right.
Well, and then also regulations can do stuff like, I don't know, get rid of Mylar lined bags entirely because, plastic, glass, metal, all of these things can be recycled if done properly. The pouches that a lot of stuff comes in, especially here in Missouri, it's just trash. It's always been, there's nothing else that can be done with it. So even putting something small like that in place is just such an uphill battle because then you're like, okay, so now we have literally the plastics lobby industry fighting against our little, Missouri coalition.
They're not only fighting. Hey, listen, this is how it is, everybody. Listen, you have to be a good person. You just have to be. And you have to keep fighting. You just have to. Because let me tell you something. These plastic lobbyists are a part of your group. They're also lobbying for what you're lobbying for. They're in both groups. They're playing the odds right now. They're in our groups. These tobacco lobbyists, these pharmaceutical lobbyists, they're in our groups lobbying for cannabis, and they're in their groups lobbying against cannabis. You understand what's happening right now? They're playing the end game. They're playing to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, and
like there's a lot of those
is to just make money on both sides of the argument, and they don't care who wins.
Nope.
And the outcome doesn't affect them in any way because they're going to get paid regardless.
Exactly. So, that's the effect to them.
That sucks.
Is that they're going to get paid regardless.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why we can't move forward with stuff like this, or it's fairly challenging. I won't say can't because we always hold out hope that we can move forward.
I
Well,
have
and
to
that's the
say,
thing. So if we're making regulations, while we're making regulations up, can we, and that's
while we're
being
making
in the room.
regulations,
While we're making things up, can we
if y'all
just-
are listening,
Tips. May want to get a pen.
So,
yeah.
well, I mean, anything. I mean, I feel like we've covered a lot and probably could keep on.
We could go on for hours.
Anything that we missed that anyone wants to touch on, or
We didn't talk too much about lights, but a lot of facilities are turning to LED to try to, be better. Try not to waste energy, basically. Be better at that. So we're seeing a lot of that happening. They're going from like the HPS lights, which use a hell of a lot of energy, and a lot of power, to LEDs, which are more
efficient.
they're better. They're more efficient. Yeah. So now y'all got to learn how to grow under LEDs. Congratulations. Good luck. Good luck out there. Some people do it fire and some people don't.
Some moves in the right direction. That's for sure. Conscious meds.
I think that LEDs change the heat output too. So then you're talking about less AC, output when for those areas that need a cooler climate, or we were talking about East Coast versus West Coast. East Coast having more damp, more moisture, whatever, and having to combat that in a grow, and the energy efficiency or the energy that is put out to combat that. The products, that are supposed to help with that. That goes into the whole different about
there's like two different
sides. Yeah, there's two different sides of the discussion there in regard to sustainable growing.
You're going to have more issues with bacteria and mildew. You're going to have more issues with pests. You're going to have, more moisture issues. So like bud rot and things like that, because your plant is in too moist of an environment. When I was on the road all the time, one of the things that I always suggested when I was on the East Coast or even in the Midwest was smaller plants, small to medium, because you don't want these. Well, actually, and I feel like the West Coast is kind of abiding that too a little bit, where you're seeing smaller plants, but with huge output. But mostly because in humid climates, you don't want these big old honking. I mean, they're beautiful, don't get me wrong. But you don't want these big old honking buds, because then they don't dry properly. And then the inside rots out basically, and it's useless. You can't.
I think that's why there's the trimming system. I think that, a set of growers I knew, they would go ahead and buck it off. They'd all cut it down so that, and then they dry it on their trays instead of letting it hang.
Right.
So just the different ways to cure a plant that the growers go through to provide
it's just, it's just better, I think, in those more moist climates to have smaller flowers, but more flowers. So I'm not saying tiny flowers. I'm not talking about popcorn.
And then there's those strains that are that have little popcorn buds that might be more conducive to the different environments, or.
I'm not gonna sit here and say that I haven't had some popcorn kick my ass a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's not always
about.
I like big buds and all that good stuff, but I like the popcorn too. I mean, it's all about variety.
Is there anything that you ladies wanted to cover that we didn't even talk about? Is there anything that we missed or that we didn't think about?
I did want to answer. There was a question asked earlier. How long does a solar panel's lifespan? It's only 25 to 30 years. They're not very long.
25 to 30.
Yeah. In reference to the investment, they're not very long.
How long does it take you? What's the pay? Actually, one of
I don't know.
My girlfriend sells solar that used to be in the cannabis industry. I should reach out to her.
Yeah, we want to know more about this. This is interesting. I have questions now.
Is
solar better if it's only going to last that short amount of time?
Well, and that's where I've had friends that work in the industry that question that themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Did I miss anything? Did we miss anything? I shouldn't just speak in terms of myself.
Not that I can think of, but as soon as we log off, I'll probably have like 10 things. I'm like,
That's okay. You
Well,
know
yeah,
what?
email it. Let's do a
Email us
follow-up
and
show.
let's do a follow-up, because we're happy to do that, because this is a really important topic, and I'm sure that we missed some things. If you are listening now and you're in the comments and you have questions or anything, or you think that we missed something, you hear the playback and you're like, wait, why didn't they talk about this? Or they should have talked more about this when they were discussing this part. Just hit us up at the Cannabis Closet 420 at Gmail. So cannabiscloset420 at gmail.com. Don't take that the off. It's not part of the
keep putting the on everything lately. I'm like,
it's because that's the name of the show. The name of the show is The Cannabis Closet Podcast, if you forgot what you were watching and listening to. We are live on YouTube and Twitch today. Usually we are also live on Facebook, but today Facebook had a complete outage, so nobody could play on Facebook today, and it felt like the early 2000s. I didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, Instagram too? No, can't do it.
And we're on a TikTok block, so
yeah, we're on a TikTok. We're off of it. They keep taking our videos down for no reason. Speaking of Instagram, by the way, we are trying to get to 1,000 followers. So if you guys follow us on Instagram, it's Cannabis Closet 420 on Instagram, so you can check us out there. We absolutely have Facebook page. Obviously, normally we would be live there. That is the Cannabis Closet Podcast on Facebook and on YouTube. On Twitch, you can find us on twitch.tv/Cannabis Closet 420. We post the show after the fact. Sometimes I'm a little lazy. They're coming, I promise. They're on their way from last week. But when we do post those, which is I post them all, they will be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and several other podcast stations too that are not as popular that I don't remember off the top of my head. So I apologize to you for that. But if you're listening on one of those podcast stations, definitely reach out and say hello. If you think we missed anything on this sustainability session, please let us know that too. What do you want to talk more about? What do you want to hear more about? What do you want more information on? Because we will be happy to have any one of these ladies back on the show to talk about all of those things. It's been a really fun conversation. I learned so much about. I mean, I knew I was going to, because this isn't, I mean, I'm really pretty well versed on cannabis, but not on I know the basics of recycling and composting and things like that, but I'm not super well versed on what's going on and what some of the problems are. So I'm glad that you ladies were on here to kind of guide us in the right direction and bring some of those things to light so that we can try to do better on our own. Where can we find you? Does Amy want to go first?
Socials, yeah.
Sure, I'll go first. Follow our Instagram page, the Under the Rose Instagram page. Check out our stuff. That's at Worth the Whispers is our Instagram. At
Worth the Whispers?
Yep.
I got it.
You got it?
Okay. You guys too. I don't know. I tried to follow you guys earlier, but this Instagram, I was like, what is going on?
I was looking for it, and yes, also I was like, I don't know. Nope.
But yeah, guys, check us out. Super cool. Everything's handmade by basically me and my boss, and it's super fun. It's girl owned, and it's powerful. We're making some good moves. So thanks
congratulations.
Again. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. It's been so awesome to talk today.
Yeah, congratulations on your MIP too. And
that's huge.
Try to get you into more stores in Colorado, because I've heard good things and I need access. So
well, heck yeah, we'll pass the word on. We have the only tattoo cream infused with THC. And nice. We've got bath bombs and body butter, all the fun stuff. So
I gotta get out to the mountains here. Seriously, we have one cream here, I think.
Road trip.
One,
come on out.
Oh my gosh, so fun.
You can find us on Facebook at Erase the Trace, and I believe Instagram also at Erase the Trace. And we have a website, ettcommunity.net, I believe. But Facebook is the primary place that we put out information if you're ever interested in volunteering here in Missouri, or if you want to get involved in your own state and are interested in branching out and starting cleanups in your own area, we'd love to talk to you about that kind of stuff as well.
Yes, that's beautiful.
And I just want to fix the website, ettcommunity.org.
Oh, yes. I forgot we're in org.
Org, I'll get it.
Yeah.
I'll get
I'm on a
You got it.
Spanish keyboard.
like she
and
said,
not on my
Facebook is the thing. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I really hope I have their email. And then I reached out to you on LinkedIn. My dog just lost her mind because there's like a deer or something outside. So I looked you up on LinkedIn, and then I sent you a message on LinkedIn, and then I was like, I don't think I have their email. And then I just take a chance. And I did have your email. And I was like, yes, because Facebook was trying to sabotage our show today. Didn't work, Facebook.
Not gonna happen.
Keep us down. We're gonna get the word out there.
All the technical difficulties in the world, we make it happen.
Still made it happen.
We're used to technical difficulties. It is part. I mean, that should be part of the name of the show, honestly.
Just all the outtakes of our technical difficulties.
I think that should be once we do have our intro, which we're still working on getting that. But once we do have our intro, I think that should be part of the intro. Technical difficulties
will ensue.
I feel that one.
Yeah, they will happen. They will absolutely happen here. Well, if anybody has any questions again on anything that we've talked about or covered on this show or any show that we've had in the past, hit us up at cannabiscloset420@gmail.com. If you enjoyed the education that you get from the Cannabis Closet, we have plenty of that. So you can definitely reach out to us. If you guys know of your dispensary and it needs a little bit of help, just tell them to call us. We'll help them out. Customer service, cqllc@gmail.com, 970-426-5985. We sponsor ourselves. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, great show. Thanks, ladies.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you for having us.
I'm going to light my joint right back up just before we go off so that we can have that final puff. And I'm going to remind everybody that you should be nice to yourself. Put your mask on before you assist others.
Cultivate love.
Love.
Yes.
And stay lifted, everybody.
Stay lifted.
See you next time.
I guess one of us has to turn this off.
Wednesday at 4:20. We'll see you then. Come back by. Peace. Where we're going to be.